Welcome to MTMG's IT Roundtable, where we bring the power of human connections to the tech world. Our experts become part of your team, so whatever tech problem is keeping you up at night, we can help you solve it.
Today, I am joined by someone whose organization quietly underpins more of Rhode Island's technology infrastructure than most people realize. Dave Marble is the CEO of OSHEAN, and we're going to talk about the work he and his team do, the conference they're building this November, and a few ideas about where technology is actually heading that are worth listening to. Dave, great to have you.
Thanks. Great to be here.
All right, so OSHEAN sits in a really interesting space. Not a vendor, not a consultancy, and not a government agency. For someone who has never encountered the organization before, how do you describe what OSHEAN actually is and what it means to the institutions that depend on it?
Well, I often start out by saying we're weird. It's a little bit strange in that we are a nonprofit service provider. So by definition, that's kind of weird.
Mm-hmm.
We are unique in Rhode Island, but we're not unique across the country. There are actually about 40 what is called a research and education network across the country, different state-based environments. There's one in Connecticut, there's one in New York. We were founded over 25 years ago by the state of Rhode Island, Brown, and University of Rhode Island. And back then, there was an idea that the public internet had been created was not going to be conducive, especially to the university sector, for the kinds of things that they were doing in research and collaborations they wanted to have with others. So they created these state-based R&E to sort of give them a sort of private version of the internet, if you will. That has grown over the years. And so OSHEAN is a 501c3 nonprofit member-based organization. And we provide fiber, internet technologies, cybersecurity technologies, cloud access, a lot of that foundational underpinning to over 160 members here in the state, all the universities and hospitals and that kind of thing. And as a member-based nonprofit, it's important to understand that OSHEAN unto itself is not this like building or company that sits over here and serves customers. We're actually the collection of members that make up the organization that does what we do. And we actually view ourselves as an extension of our membership. So when we try to help our members do something, we feel like an extension of their staff in trying to do the kinds of things that they'd like us to do.
Well, I have to say that's one of the things that I've always loved about OSHEAN is that it is member-driven, it is member-focused, and everybody on your team I've talked to over the months that we've been working together, everything they talk about is how do we make this better for our members? Everything we do is how do we do this better? How do we make their lives more, or their jobs more easy to fulfill, their jobs more, how do we impact them in a positive way? And I love that. So you refer to the clients as members.
Mm-hmm.
And those members span municipalities, hospitals, higher ed, libraries, schools, state agencies, institutions that rarely sit in the same room together. What happens in that room that would not happen anywhere else?
Well, we're all going through, have been for some time now, a digital transformation, right? I mean, I'm showing my age, but I've been in the business for 43 years. So I started in 1983.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So that was 5 years before Cisco. Right. So, I mean, I'm old. But what I've seen over the years is sort of the patternistic things that go on relative to digital transformation. So over time, while we understand the vertical nuances of the difference between a K-12 and a university, and some of that is like the ability to pay, right? Some of that is that the school has a parent on Thursdays working on their AP, that for their wireless, right? And so sometimes it's the ability to implement that is the difference. But it doesn't change the fact that they need wireless and they need internet and they need, connectivity, and their applications are expanding and the digital transformations that they're all going through. What it turns out that in that room where they collect and work together or see each other at a member level, they actually now can learn from each other, right? They can learn techniques that might have been done by another organization. It's up to us, at the facilitation level to realize that I might need a different pricing model in the K-12 space or the library space because of that. And the way they get monies from the federal government or not, and that kind of thing is different. But the need is still the same. We just went through and we adopted the free clinic in Providence, right? It was like bar rescue for IT. And we revamped like everything. And it was us and a bunch of volunteers from around the state that all got together as a volunteer effort to sort of get their duct taped APs off the floor and get granddad's laptop off the network and give him an OSHEAN connection, do all that kind of stuff. And we wrote little grants and we got it all together. But ultimately, the needs of someone who that free clinic sees 10,000 patients a month, like you walk in there just like anybody else walks in there, they got the same problem that any of us walking into the larger hospitals have. And so we wanted to bring them in from let's call it a digital equity perspective and do the same kinds of things. They just couldn't pay for it and they couldn't implement. So we had to figure out how to do that. And those projects are awesome. I love that stuff.
I was just going to say, that is just so antithetical to the way to the industry typically works. And people are so often looking at, okay, what's your business model? How are you making money? Where's your revenue coming from? Not how do I solve that problem? How do I help that organization?
To be clear, I was in that world on the vendor side for 30 years before I came here. So I've been here for 14 years. And I was in board meetings before, back in the 90s, where the first thing the board's looking at is what is your revenue, what is your growth model quarter over quarter, what is your margin profile, blah, blah, blah. And I totally get that. I totally respect it, right? I come here and they don't look at the revenue, right? They do want to make sure we're above the line at the end of the year. But can we do more for the same footprint? Because that's what they're charged with.
Mm-hmm.
And just put more and more into this. So they're getting the kinds of efficiencies that they are, and they're not, and we don't look at the growth per revenue and all that. We don't look at it that. It's quite honestly, it's very refreshing. And it's a really cool model.
I came from tech as well, from the sales and customer success side.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I really struggled with was the short-sightedness in my mind of looking at only how much more money can we make out of this person or this company. And when we founded MTMG, we had the exact same mentality that you're talking about, that, well, no, how do we bring more value? What is it that we can do to take the experiences we've all had, the strengths that we have, and help improve the people that we're working with in a way that they just can't do on their own? And just starting with that as the premise, and yes, we'll figure out a way to make money. But the more important premise is, how do we deliver that value and how do we help those people solve those problems they can't on their own? That has been the driving force. And I love that your whole organization is built much grander than we are, but just with that same mentality. But
well, it's not just OSHEAN. I mentioned the 40 other runs around the country. We do 160,000 community anchor institutions across the country. And nobody's ever heard of us. Nobody knows who we are. So the guys in California have 12,000 members, right? And in the California run, right? And people know AT&T and they know Verizon. They don't know Scenic, right? And that's because we don't spend a lot of money on marketing, as you probably have heard from us. And so a lot of people, even in Rhode Island, don't know who OSHEAN is, because I'd rather get an engineer that works on members' firewalls than marketing. And so we're trying to change that a little bit. And that's what some of this is about, which is our member conference and the kinds of things that we're doing to try to get everybody to understand what it is that we do.
Well, perfect segue. So the conference is called OMC 26, and it has a theme of complexity is a team sport. That phrase does a lot of work. Where did it come from, and what's the statement you are really making with it?
I was a Boy Scout, so I will tell the truth. I used AI just like everybody else. I and I use AI daily, like a lot of us do. And I'm a favorite of Claude. I use Claude underneath our Copilot umbrella, which is really working great. And what happens is over time, it gets to know Dave and it gets to know Ocean a little bit. And so I gave it a series of prompts and I said, having our member conference. And it went back and looked at our old member conferences, which I couldn't have found with a, and so it figured out and it gave me a whole bunch of answers with rationales. So it said this theme sounds like this and this one wrong. And complexity as a team sport just sounded like that's something I would say. And that's it. It's as simple as that.
Well, but I have to say, you've already talked about it a few times. So it's true. It obviously not just sounded good, but it resonated on what you're building. Like you were talking about that free clinic.
Yeah.
It wasn't just OSHEAN was walking in to solve it. It was, we've got a bunch of different people that are teaming up together to help solve this problem.
Well, and the problems or quote digital transformations, right? So when I joined here, again, 13, 14 years ago, we were mainly connecting to commodity services and connecting buildings together in the state in a meshed fiber to. So we have mostly fiber and then like bulk internet, right? And if the fiber went down, it rerouted in 50 milliseconds and everything was fine. And that was it, right? Now, and by the way, the bandwidth was 1 gig for the fast guys and below that for everybody else. Now I'm running a 400 gig middle mile to a supercomputing center in the middle of Massachusetts for URI's climate research, right? And I'm doing that while running the email, for St. Rosa Lima School, right? And so you've got everything in between. And so if you look at the calls we used to get, a car hit a pole and we've got to get a crew out there. To now, I've got an application that's running in AWS container in Ashburn, and it's running a little bit slow. Everything else is fine, but I've got what's going on with this? So now we're responsible at the application and payload level to whatever destination that might be. And some of those individual applications are like reading MRIs at a remote MRI service bureau, right? Well, if you're the patient on the table, you kind of want that quick, right?
I would say so.
And so the complexity of being able, all the tool sets have changed, all of the responsibilities of that kind of individualized traffic and laying it out and building the best possible, in many cases, lowest latency or the lowest delay, route to its destination, having resiliency, geographic resilience. If something happens over here, I can go to Boston and go out that way. That is very complex. And then to add the fact that it might be a cloud service, it might be a locally stored prem service, it might be some service provider, or it might be a collaboration with another entity, right? Like two universities working together. By the way, it all has to be secure now, right? And that's a massive deal. And so now it changes we built an entire organization for cybersecurity, right? And rightly so, right? So there's an old Rhode Island song called "It's a Complex World." It's a great old 70s based Rhode Island song, and that just always comes to mind. This complex world.
That is so true. I'll have to go find that, see if it's on YouTube or something, and I can
Rudy
include
Cheeks.
Cheeks?
Rudy Cheeks was the young adults. Was the group. It was,
We'll
Brings
have to
back
get
fun.
that and put it in the show notes. That's
Back
great.
in the day.
I love it.
So
So, of the conference, day 2 moves to Rhode Island College and their new cyber range facility. That's a deliberate choice, not a change of venue. What do you want people to walk away from that experience understanding that they could not have understood from a panel discussion?
yeah. So the day 2 is more academic, right? So it's right to have it at an academic center, right? I mean, we oftentimes in many of our former member conferences were at one of our members' institutions, right? Bryant and PC and Rhode Island College was our last one, actually. They have built the Cyber Institute there, and they have the Cyber Exchange. And we're very friendly with them. And so we decided to make the second day the academic day, where you would have workshops, either half day or full day workshops, and go to a level of depth that would allow you to get certificates of completion, credits, those kinds of things. So they will be much more hands-on, much more experiential. I mean, the cyber range is awesome. You can program it up with 40 different scenarios of attack and figure out how to respond in a more experiential environment. And there's we're still putting together the agenda for the other workshops, but they will be deeper learning experience as opposed to this more standard conference base.
Mm-hmm. Fascinating stuff. And well, I believe we're going to be doing a podcast with folks from the Cyber Range shortly, because it's a movie set. It is so well done, so immersive. It's got to be such a fascinating experience. So I think that's going to be something that is going to be well worth the price of admission.
Well, we're begging, if you're on the supplier side, if you will, and trying to implement this stuff, we're begging for talent, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we've got to teach our kids what's going on. And obviously with AI and quantum and all the other stuff going on, it's getting pretty crazy what it is that they need to learn before they can even get on to college, right? So they're putting together a nice program there, an academic program too, and the Cyber Range is good for a great learning tool. So,
well, again, you're the master of the segue, apparently. You've been thinking seriously about quantum, not as a distant horizon, but as something with real implications for the institutions OSHEAN serve. What is the conversation right now? And what should a CIO or IT director in Rhode Island be doing with it today?
I have to come clean. I was a physics major in college, so I went to URI, and I was a physics major back in the 70s and early 80s. That being said, that was the last time I took a physics class. I don't pretend to know the ins and outs of quantum entanglement, but my own personal curiosity stems from that. I've been following it ever since. It was never cool to be in physics, right? So, and nobody understood it anyway. And quite honestly, I just wrote a blog about a marketing problem because everybody runs screaming with their hair on fire if they hear the word, because they don't understand it. Like, we don't have models for it. We don't have any of that. And it's very, very complicated. There are two areas. We always have to think of these new models relative to what does it mean for our members, and what is OSHAN's responsibility to our members to make sure that they're ready for these kinds of things, right? And what is our role, right? So number one, there are two very big areas that we're mostly involved in. One is quantum compute, which is the resource to compute at a quantum level. And then there's quantum network, which is like, how do you get to that computer, or how do you network quantum computers together? Because quantum computers are very challenging to build, and what you'll see happen is you'll get pockets of quantum capability, and you're going to want to network them together to get the full scale, right? And that uses a network. The problem is that quantum has the bad luck of having the first major use case be an apocalyptic negative. And that is what's called Q-Day, which is the day that quantum compute can break the encryption code of all of our money. Right? So it used to be that day was sort of projected in the late 2030s. Google just announced that it's probably closer to 2029.
Hmm.
That being said, we're not going to have a world of quantum networks, which are by definition encrypted. So that would solve the problem if we had no quantum networks ever. But nobody believes that we're going to be able to build a quantum entangled network all over the world by then. So there's a thing called post-quantum cryptography, which is a software approach to being able to buttress that kind of an attack from a quantum computer. That's much more likely. And a number of our members are coming out, like Cisco and Fortinet and Cloudflare, and Internet 2, which is our global middle mile that we connect to, and showing how to support a post-quantum cryptographic implementation across the network. And literally, we will have to upgrade our networks to the release codes that each of those guys have, and those guys are strategic partners of ours, so that we're ready. So when that gets deployed, that we're able to transport that, and that the network can handle it and all that kind of stuff. That's much more of a realistic kind of approach. I do believe that it's been creeping up with us without much fanfare, other than the geeks like us that know that stuff. And I don't think anybody has an idea of what that actually really means. But the good news is that the industry and the vendors are being responsible about trying to fix it quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So then it can go on, quantum will go on, doing what it was meant to do. Because it wasn't just meant to protect us against it. Like, it is an absolutely fascinating development. And I make in my blog, I said basically that I believe that it's more important than AI in terms of because quantum at its very nature is the nature of matter. So it's like how you and I are put together, like at atomic and subatomic level. It's how the universe is created at a subatomic level. And I think we will learn more, and already have learned more through that endeavor than we'll ever learn in AI.
That's fascinating stuff. Absolutely fascinating stuff.
Very cool stuff.
We'll have to we'll have another podcast just about quantum.
There's a whole, that's a whole thing. It's the coolest thing.
Absolutely. So I'm just going to bring this to a close. Someone listening to this is deciding whether OMC 26 is worth their time on the 12th of November. What do you want them to know? Not about the agenda necessarily, but what this day is actually for.
It's learning. It's not us patting ourselves on the back and say, look what we did. It's not about that, right? And I go to a lot of conferences, so there's a reason I said that. It's really about learning, and the learning happens in a couple of different ways. One is you've got really high-end experts explaining what it is that's going, right? In all of our breakout sessions, if one of our vendors, let's say Cisco or Fortinet or somebody like that, if they do a breakout, they're going to have an OSHEAN member alongside them that is showing what they implemented using the technologies and so forth. So it's not a sales approach for any of them to sell their product. It's an analysis or a deep dive on the implementation, what they ran into, what troubles they had, all of that. And that's wildly valuable.
Mm-hmm.
And we will absolutely be covering the quote topics of the day. So you're going to get a quantum breakout. You're going to get an AI breakout. You're going to get a cybersecurity, cyber exposure management breakout. Right? You're going to get all that. The keynotes will be, as keynotes go, one of them will be a panel on healthcare, right? What does AI mean to the healthcare industry in very different perspectives? You'll have a research perspective. You'll have the federal government policy expert. You'll have how do you deal with IoT and AI in a healthcare institution, right? All kinds of things. So you get very different worldviews of the kinds of things that are going on in health. So from a learning perspective, that is the fundamental thing that I think everybody will be able to take away. And oh, by the way, the social side of things, never underestimate the social side of collaboration. It's people walking around saying, "Oh, I haven't seen you in a long time. What are you doing?" And those connections are highly valuable. We provide a lot of time for that. The vendors will all be there. They'll have their tables and all that kind of stuff. But there's also just a lot of time for people to interact, the members to interact with each other. And at the end of the day, you get a root beer flu. I'm big on that. Last one, we did that at the last one. It was wildly popular. So
That is great. That is absolutely great. This has been exactly the kind of conversation I hoped it would be.
okay.
If you want to learn more about OSHEAN or register for OMC 26 on November 12th and 13th, you'll find everything at ocean.org, OSHEAN.org. Thanks so much for listening. And Dave, thanks so much for being here. Really, truly appreciate it.
My pleasure, Cole.
So that brings us to the end of today's conversation. Thank you for joining us. If today's discussion resonated with you, please consider giving us a 5-star review. Your feedback not only supports our show, but also helps others find us. Thank you so much for listening to MTMG's IT Roundtable. We look forward to bringing you more conversations soon. Until then, take care, and know our team is always here to help. Sláinte
MTMG, guidance that empowers.